The Souls series has been around for quite some time now, and it had its run on the PlayStation 1 with the Kingsfield games. Ever since the debut of Demon Souls on the PlayStation 3, From Software has impeccably made their name known, only further impressing the fans who have been around since Kingsfield and only drawing in a larger fan base with Demon Souls. True, I have an insatiable love for the series, and each installment they do nothing but improve. Not only the quality, but the immersion of the series as well. Something about the series at the heart always reminded me of J.R.R. Tolkien in classic mythology as well. The great foreboding evil that can only be destroyed, but it being the world's most greatest and tremendous evil. It always finds a way into the hearts of man, and the idea that they've always had at the heart of the series about this great and terrible old one. It reeks the potential of something that you felt has already been a novel series for years on end, because it was just so flawlessly and intricately thought out. Something about this universe always personally drove me to needing to find out what makes this evil tick. The true story hidden beneath the grim pages of whatever lands we're visiting, whether it's Boletaria, Lordaeron, or Drangleic. The Souls series continues to improve itself over the years, only adding to the depth of each installment, not to mention its graphic potential. Anticipating Bloodborne's release, and knowing the original director of Demon Souls was first-hand in the charge of this project, I could hardly contain my excitement. I waited patiently, and that time has finally arisen, to come back to the Souls universe roughly 2 years later. I personally could hardly wait to hold that controller in my hands. Bloodborne really sold itself on their dodging mechanics. I played since Demon Souls, and while dodging was never broken or felt unfair, I feel the dodging system in this installment was impeccable. Like a perfected version of what we've always had in the Souls games. And personally, I prefer a quick dash over a roll. To me, it just feels so much cleaner. Which is great, because in this game, you can still roll if you truly want to, making it accessible by veterans and newcomers alike. The game itself, its frame rate is the best I've seen a PlayStation 4 game as of yet. You've probably seen people comparing the direction they chose to approach unique weapons in this installment to none other than Pokemon. Truly, it's a great comparison. 90% of the weapons all transform into a two-handed version, driving you the same way Pokemon did, with how each and every Pokemon was different, not only in its looks, but its skills and abilities, not to mention its pros and cons. And not one did I find myself disappointed by. I always stick to having two main weapons that I switch between in my Soul game. And I did do the same thing this time around, but honestly, each weapon was separately impressive. And I can honestly say they made great design choices for all of the weapons. Unlike every other Souls game, there is no penalty for dying. In Demon Souls, you would lose half of your health bar. Dark Souls, you would go hollow. And in Dark Souls 2, more akin to Demon Souls, with each death, your life bar would slightly decrease unless you have a specific ring that absorbs the penalty and break. Which, even though we're not reviewing Dark Souls 2 here, but the scapegoat of the ring only proved its accessibility in design. And Bloodborne took all that away. I wouldn't label it harder per se, but much, much less forgiving. Only giving you one type of healing item and no scapegoats, including it's the first Souls game to not have a ring equip slot. But in that, Bloodborne only pushes you to have your wits about you. And it feels really great, almost as if Demon Souls' release was leading up to Bloodborne, but they wanted its release to fit their vision. And now that it's 2015, Miyazaki and his team could finally make their vision of his next Souls installment a fulfilling reality. To say the graphics are razor sharp is an understatement. Dark Souls 2 had some beautiful particle effects. If you sat next to a bonfire and watched, you could slowly see the embers falling all around you. Bloodborne literally ate that alive and only increased the potential of their graphics. Looking back on Demon Souls, you can truly see how far their team has come, and not only that, but the power of next generation consoles. We talked about the frame rate, but every visual of this game was pristinely crafted. The animations on the character models are outstanding. I can feel each limb and muscle move, the weight of the weapons, and even the fatigue of my character. Like I said, the immersion has only increased with this installment. The Souls series has always had a really inspiring and intriguing way of level design. Ever since Dark Souls, it felt like this giant, huge, explorable, and dangerous world was interconnected. It didn't feel like a forest happened to be next to a castle. You could legitimately feel like your character was traversing through these lands. The same effect the Elder Scrolls gives off. In that, Bloodborne City Yharnam seems as if it was directly inspired by the Gothic era in Castlevania. The set pieces alone set the tone. For the game, the eerie, abandoned city riddled with mutated citizens, the peering moon that is always in view during your progression through the game, is a foreboding feeling and truly drives you to find the unknown, to solve the mystery of Yharnam. Ever since Demon Souls, I haven't been startled or frightened by an enemy or boss design. That's not saying that each game hasn't been impressive in that sense, but Bloodborne truly showed its potential. It was the first time I got frightened or startled from a boss or enemy design, perplexed by its immensity and ferocious nature. They truly outdid themselves visually this time around. With that, when Dark Souls 2 was released, what it presented visually in comparison to its previous installments, it was a huge step up. Mind you, Dark Souls 2 had to limit itself to the current generation's limitations on their consoles. And Bloodborne showed how much they were held back, even down to the lighting and shadows, the way the luminous moon shines down, or a lantern glows, how an enemy would light up when you doused it in flames. Bloodborne's team truly spent their time to visually impress you, making your skin crawl, and having you find your character stand in silence while you're perplexed and in a visual awe. Not only seemingly mesmerized by its visual presentation, but driving you, motivating you, to see the rest of this hauntingly beautiful kingdom of Yharnam. From the visual presentation to the game's mechanics, everything in Bloodborne truly seemed like they carefully took their time with each and every detail, only leading to a brilliant execution. The heart of the game itself felt like purely a successor to that of Demon Souls. From the way you're thrown into the world, to the way the mystery was eluded, and all the recurring Demon Souls characters, even some of the level design was directly reminiscent of areas from Demon Souls, like the Tower of Latria. As a veteran of the series, it was truly a lovely treat. As you progress through the game, I can safely say, it doesn't drag you down, or get disappointing in the end. The entire experience is utterly thrilling, and it only gets stranger and even more engaging. Not until this installment did I realize how truly inspired they were by H.P. Lovecraft in relation to the old one. And while I love each of the games for their own reasons and respect them as separate stories filling out this dark universe, Bloodborne truly went the extra mile. Compared to its predecessors, Bloodborne had not only a darker mystery, but the way the characters of the world alluded toward the truth. It was something different from Dark Souls and more akin to Demon Souls. As you slowly unveil the unseen secret throughout the entirety of this game, it was so well crafted, so well thought out, that it delivered something special to us. As if the Souls games finally have an installment that derives from the themes of Lovecraft and Castlevania. As if something in the themes themselves made it feel like this is the Souls series Castlevania, or a universe inspired by Dracula in Transylvania. The distant gap between the Gothic medieval era and the next age. This time around in the Souls series, they added something called Chalice Dungeons, which I have not yet completely finished, but I have dived in quite a bit. I personally believe this is a great feature because they don't even need to hype up for DLC, because each time you click create, they're randomly generated. From the layout to the monsters to the item drop rate, keeping players coming back for an experience, and in my personal opinion, additions to the already insanely deep lore. Something that definitely has me waiting in anticipation for some free time. Besides the greatness that is the Chalice Dungeon, the game has an Easter egg, in which all I'll say is it's at a castle. Once you stepped onto a balcony, the Kingsfield Island, not only is it a sweet distant treat that would just have you peering into its existence, pondering how far this wonderful series has come, like a landmark of where it all began. It's quite difficult to think of drawbacks with the visual presentation, game mechanics, and execution being so well done. But I did come to one. After all this time with the series, they still have not come up with things to give or reward the player for reaching New Game Plus. Besides carrying over your items and increasing the health of the monsters to scale with your level, I'll consider only half a drawback. Something that they should take note of and ponder on the thought of what we could add next time. Playing through, I never had a frame rate issue. Now, load times were a tad long at times, but they have obviously addressed that in a patch, including a number of game exploits, such as leaving it on for a certain amount of time and have the AI completely break, making the game some super easy mode, which only reminded me of the level up glitch in Demon's Souls Japanese version that was unpatched, allowing people to kill themselves over and over and over and clone their souls, literally rigging all of the top leaderboards. But unlike Demon's Souls, everything was addressed with patches. With that, those are the only real drawbacks, because I never had a freeze or even a clipping or graphical issue. They really spent the time to perfect this Souls installment, to give us the best experience they possibly could. While I'm still waiting on time to open up to get back to the Chalice Dungeons, my experience with Bloodborne was nearly flawless, capturing everything they did in Demon's Souls, but only showing how much the team has improved in their talents. And I literally felt Miyazaki put his blood, heart, and soul into this game's writing. While it is a similar experience because it is a Souls game, they crafted something unique and worthy of being the next and latest installment in the Souls series. They pushed themselves in the PlayStation 4 to its limits. Not to mention, this title is actually longer than Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 1. It was the most engaging yet, and as much as I love Demon's Souls, Dark Souls, and Dark Souls 2 equally, this title resonated even more with me than its predecessors. It felt as if the Souls series has never been this alive, this engaging, and this well executed, regardless of how great each previous title was. They truly outdid themselves this time and delivered something that almost seemed like it was crafted from pure gold or a gem of pure starlight. Sure, The Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt isn't out just yet, but I personally believe that Bloodborne's release is an unforgettable one, and one of the best games to be released in 2015. An overall grand experience. If you're not into fantasy or medieval-derived games, sure, this game won't be for you, but you can appreciate the grandiosity of this impeccably unforgettable title. I couldn't be more happy with the latest installment and its experience. I give Bloodborne a 9.8 out of 10.
What the fuck? What?